can you pass along a beneficiary IRA? And if you do, pass away and pass along this IRA, what are the rules of distribution?
Okay, so let's say my father inherited from his mother an IRA.
Hmm.
So he has what's called a beneficiary IRA. And now my father passes away and I get that. So I've inherited a beneficiary IRA. And so it depends on when my grandmother, in this case,
Hmm.
passed away and passed the money to my father. So because there is the 2020 Secure 2.0 Act, I think it was, that changed the rules around distribution from inherited IRAs.
Yeah, so essentially what happens is, yes, you can inherit an IRA. You basically become a second generation owner of this. Um, and so the rules are, if the original person passed away pre 2020, um, the orig- the s- the owner, primary, let's go with primary beneficiary, would have a stretch IRA essentially.
That would have been my father in the case that
Yeah,
I was talking about. So my father would have been able to take out a little bit at a time, what's called a stretch IRA, just based on his age and such. And
yeah,
so it was a really nice program.
yeah, and so that was kind of gotten rid of with the 2020 Secure Act. And so what happened is, this successor beneficiary now gets basically a 10-year distribution window based on the death of the primary beneficiary.
So I inherit my father's beneficiary IRA that came from my grandmother.
Yeah,
He was already doing a stretch. And so that means that I have to
yeah,
take that out over a 10-year period.
yeah. And with the new rules, you would have RMD on your age, but
Right,
likely you wouldn't exhaust it by the end. So, um, but that's how it would be set up.
right.
And so, what happens if the person, passed away post 2020, the original owner, and then the next owner passed, a couple years later, let's say. So essentially, the new owner, the successor beneficiary, would have to assume the current timeline. So let's say they had a 10-year distribution window, and the primary successor or beneficiary has used up 2 years.
Right.
Now you have 8 years to distribute everything. But and likely you'd have to take RMDs on those 8 years too.
Yeah, so using the analogy again, so my grandmother passes away after 2020.
Hmm.
So my father inherits this. He has to start taking it out over 10 years. He
Yeah,
can't stretch it out over his life like he used to be able to. He has taken it out for, it's 2 years later, he passes away.
yeah,
Now I have 8 years left,
yeah.
right?
You assume their
Versus
timeline.
the other scenario, my grandmother passes away before 2020. I got a full 10-year window to take it out. If my grandmother, in this case, passed away after the Secure Act was passed, I have to look at my father's, how long he has been,
Distributing, yeah.
distributing or supposed to be distributing or whatever you want to look like. How much of the 10-year period has he already used, and I
Hmm.
get to use the rest. So it's kind of interesting. Of course, this is welcome to the IRS tax code.
They never
But
make it simple.
no, they didn't. It's not that easy to make it simple, unfortunately. I mean, maybe it is. You have to start all over.
Yeah,
But yeah,
you start from scratch.
which isn't easy either. So anyway, that's how it works. It's a good question. It's really an interesting area.
Yeah,
We're
and
seeing more and more of the
especially a lot of
things
people
come
take
up.
on stretch IRAs because there's a lot of stretch IRAs out there,
Yes,
and so a lot of people are now inheriting these stretch IRAs
that's right.
because usually a lot of times people don't deplete their stretch IRAs.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Because if you follow the requirement of distribution table, which is what we used to do with these stretch IRAs, you'll have money until you're 115 to 120. I've forgotten where
Yeah,
that is.
you can have money for a long
Yeah,
time.
if you just take out the minimum amount, it'll go for the rest of your life. But those are gone now. For all intents and purposes, if you already have one, that continues to go. That's fine. But if you inherit IRA money now, you're going to have some type of a shorter distribution window.
Yeah, unless you're an eligible designation, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, those don't apply for second generation
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
successors.